Hello, welcome to the Family Values Podcast.
Sorry, I didn't realise we were starting. It's Joe Woods.
It's Tom Hicks.
Second week at the Herman Hill Studios. Casa Ahmed. So basically, we don't need to introduce this. We are a week on, or just over a week on, from the passing of the second general election, the December 12th general election.
Yep, and we are on. The ball is moving. Everyone is campaigning. Boris was at a crisp factory today, wearing his hairnuts and everything, and Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell are giving speeches, and yep, it's pretty much what you would expect from an election at this point.
And the moderates of both parties are being hacked off like horny teens in a slasher film.
Yes, particularly in the last couple of days, the Labour moderates are a bit, well, not just rebelling, they're just outright leaving, which is very...
There was a little bit of history to this in regards to particularly the female side of the of Conservative politicians. Either they jump ship from and say they're standing down, or they're going to Lib Dems because they're just being threatened.
They're being threatened from online people.
Online, people turning up to constituency offices. It's pretty fucked up. So people turning up to surgeries.
There's this horrible element.
Heidi Allen, for example. She stepped down this time last week.
Yes, she stepped down. Although with Heidi Allen, it's a bit of a special case, given that she's stood for 4 different parties during the last Parliament, I think.
Has she? Oh, she did go Change, didn't she?
She went Change, then she went the Independent Group for Change, or the Independent Change
Hyde,
Group.
Does that count?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're all moving. Then she eventually went to the Lib Dems, and then the Lib Dems probably said, you're a little bit toxic, so we don't want you there anyway.
Just to put this kind of back on track, because for some reason it doesn't feel like we've actually started it. Do you know what it is? We're actually sitting here with lapel mics, and we're not used to it, so it feels a bit more free flowing.
It does a little bit, but to get a bit of a structure on this,
in terms of resignations, Tom Watson stepped down as deputy leader of the Labour Party last night.
Yeah,
I know what I think, Tom. Predictions as to, well, not predictions, but feelings as to why you think Watson stepped down, and what does this mean for the Labour's campaign?
Well, it's interesting, because when I saw the news yesterday, it was a very predictable news article about personal reasons and whatnot, but I think anyone with a single brain cell realises that's probably not the actual reason.
You said personal reasons, didn't you?
Yeah, personal reasons, which is effectively a get-out clause at this stage. Because if there had been a really legitimate personal reason, such as the death of a family member or something, or a drastic change in his life, I think he would have made that public, because people wouldn't have, there would have been arseholes on Twitter saying shit, but most people would have been like, okay, fair enough, and it would have been less politically damaging to the Labour Party than just saying reasons, basically, which I think there's probably more underlying reasons. Whether he left of his own accord or was pushed out is another matter, and I would probably at the moment...
When I first heard last night, and that Watson was stepping down, excuse me, obviously I heard it as it was basically breaking on the great political platform in his LBC, and he essentially, when he first said he was stepping down due to personal reasons, I for some reason got the feeling that momentum might have either pushed him in a sort of backhanded way, or there's some kind of blackmail going on.
That is another possibility there, that they have something on him which they're, as you say, effectively blackmailing him, which, if true, I don't think that there's that could be the end of game for the Labour Party, because if it does turn out that they effectively pushed out a moderate, I can't see any moderates voting for the Labour Party. They'll vote for the Lib Dems, and it might actually be the case that this election takes a real turn.
I think I've said this before. I don't see the hollowing out of moderates from Labour away from a few kind of, let's say, 40-year-old Blairites. I don't see them losing Watson. Or losing any other moderates. I don't see it as them losing votes. I don't think it'll gain them any votes, but I don't see it as them losing any votes.
I think that there's a tipping point. I reckon if the Lib Dems can stay ahead of the Labour for a week or two, a lot of people will start jumping ship, because I think at the moment the Lib Dems probably have a more keener grasp of where generally left-wing Remain people are today in the country than Labour do. It's certainly a more easy position to understand.
Yes.
At the moment, whether you agree or disagree with it, just stopping Brexit is a pretty easy thing to understand.
I mean, sorry, I've lost my train of thought there for a second. With Watson, I mean, he stepped down as deputy leader of the Labour Party. He hasn't left Labour. That's the important point to make here.
Well, apparently he's going to be campaigning for them, which is interesting.
Yeah. Because it makes you think, then why did you step down as deputy prime minister, as deputy leader?
Exactly.
Because obviously naturally people jump to the conclusion that he can't serve with or under Corbyn as a potential prime minister.
Yes.
And now, let's be honest, it's looking slightly more likely that we could have some kind of Labour government. And I'm not saying it will happen. I'm saying it feels a little bit more likely now than it did.
What makes you think that then?
I've said forever that if this election rolled around, that it will be no different to now. We'll end up with a minority Tory government or some kind of hung parliament that will result in a minority Tory government with some kind of, hope and faith deal or whatever the fuck it is, supply and demand deal.
Supply and demand, hope and faith deal. I think that's a more accurate description of it, actually, particularly given the relationships between the Tories and the DUP at this time.
Exactly. Yeah. Every fucking time there's an extra billion going towards Ulster. Point being, I still see it. I still see that as the most likely outcome.
I agree with you. It's
minority Tory government. No real great changes in MPs across the country in certain seats. So Parliament stays the same. We have the same governing party, and again, it will just be Brexit deadlock. I still see that as being the most likely outcome.
No, I agree with you there.
But it does feel, particularly when you're looking at the polls, that Labour might be closing in.
Interesting. I would say that at the moment, because of the closeness of Labour and Lib Dems, that is Labour's biggest challenge.
Obstacle. Yeah. Oh yeah, it will. If any votes are going to be split, and we talk about the Brexit Party splitting votes across the north, I actually see the Lib Dems splitting Labour votes in the south as more of a threat.
No, I agree with you, particularly considering what people in the Brexit Party have been doing this week, which is almost a couple of years ago would have been absolute sacrilege for a Leave voting party like Brexit Party, which is outwardly going against what Nigel Farage has laid down. Farage has put down this plan to try and get Boris to agree to no deal, to try and abandon his deal. And a lot of people in the Brexit Party, even the parliamentary candidates, have just stand down because they think that that's going to split the Leave vote.
Just to break the fourth wall here, we were setting out the agenda before the episode we started recording. You totally just reminded me of that. The fact that earlier this week, Farage announced he wasn't standing as an MP.
Yes.
Normally he stands in Thanet.
Yeah.
Thanet out on the Kentish coast. He's never won it.
No. He came very close one year, I think.
That was, I think, 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that was the year when everything seemed a lot closer. In regards to UKIP and Brexit generalness, just seemed like it was sweeping the polls. And then 2017, that all kind of slided back.
Well, it was because in 2015, that was the year when Cameron promised the EU referendum. That was on his the manifesto.
Going back to the vote splitting issue, I actually don't see. Just to make. Sorry, why am I playing my car keys? Put those down. Right, I'm like a fucking child. Just to see what Farage did earlier this week, which is stepping down and saying, I'll be supporting the 600 candidates we'll be putting up. So he says he's putting them. He's contradicting himself because he's putting MPs in every seat.
Yeah.
Then he says it's 600, where there's roughly 650 seats across the UK.
To be fair, he's always said that he wouldn't stand in Scotland and Northern Ireland.
Right, because he believes in an English Parliament and devolved areas and.
There's that. I think the reason he gives, or the more real reason, is that both those.
They wouldn't make any kind of push in,
particularly in Northern Ireland.
It shows you why he stands in Wales.
Yes, I think. Yeah, well, precisely. Well, Wales, of course, was the only other country to vote with England for Brexit. So I think they did vote overall for in the EU elections for the Brexit Party.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for them to stand.
I think 2 out of 4 of the Welsh MEPs are Brexit.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me at all.
But what was I going to say? I just this idea, And I mean, it made sense, this idea that the Brexit Party were going to split votes in Labour seats in the north, which was the big fear. And I see it, but you have to remember the Brexit Party feels way more relevant now than it did a few months ago.
Yes, definitely.
And their polls have slipped down to like 7%?
Ever since Boris got the deal, they have been slipping and slipping because there's Brexit fatigue on both sides.
Yeah.
And there's people who, when they were utterly against Theresa May's deal, Boris has come back and yes, he's only changed a few things, but they are pretty key points.
Even though they're a pretty new party, the Brexit Party now feel ultimately just irrelevant. They don't feel like they're just... I mean, they feel like... UKIP always felt like a pressure group, and so did the Brexit Party. But now they just feel like, okay, after this election, they're going to slide away.
Yeah, no, I think that particularly if the Tories get a majority, I can't see them standing in another election.
No, well, I mean, yeah, because essentially we'll be leaving one way or another.
Yeah.
Farage will try, if we leave with a deal, Farage will try and hang on because that means that he sees scope for him to remain in politics and say, you were lied to, you were told we were leaving without a deal, and you have not received Brexit.
Yeah.
Whatever receiving Brexit means, I wouldn't like to think. But at the end of the day, if we leave without a deal, which hopefully we fucking don't, what does that mean for Farage?
Well, he will have to put his money where his mouth is and everything, because he will be the man that everyone will point to as being effectively responsible for that, because he's been the only major politician who has consistently been calling for a no deal.
Well, no, he hasn't consistently been calling for it because...
Well, okay, since no deal came a
talking point.
A talking
which
point.
Was what, a year ago?
Ever since, basically a year ago since Theresa May brought her deal back.
I fucking specifically remember, I think I might have said this before on the podcast, but I remember 2015, I was standing in my fucking kitchen cooking goulash specifically. I don't know why I remember that. Point being, standing in my kitchen, I had LBC on one night, and he's been interviewed by, I can't remember who, probably Ian Dow or something, and he starts going on about how there's no way we would leave, there's any chance we would leave without any kind of, because this was the talk of arrangements at the time. Right. The whole talk in the run-up to the EU referendum was about our relationship with the EU. We never talked about actual written deals.
Yes, it was mainly an after thing, because you only heard the phrases soft Brexit and half Brexit after the referendum result.
And that, in big part, that was down to David Give It To Me Harder Davis, because that's the tones he spoke in.
Right.
But I remember Farage saying on Radio Live, I remember him saying, we would like to go for something, maybe Switzerland, but most likely a Norway deal. And I remember like shouting on my radio, good luck getting that past your fucking followers, because that means freedom of movement.
Yeah, which is, it's one of those things where you're like, freedom of movement, I don't think anyone would disagree, is probably the biggest indicator of actual EU membership, actual being in the EU's orbit. You can still be within the EU's orbit without freedom of movement, but if you have freedom of movement with the EU, then you are definitely in their orbit, and really, by his own definition, that wouldn't be Brexit.
It's really fucking strange the amount of different deals certain countries have. The reality is, if you're a richer country that is part of like an EFTA type deal, so someone like Norway or Sweden, you get full economic access benefits, yet you have to be stuck with freedom of movement.
Yeah.
Which whatever, and they don't care for the most part. If you're a poorer, particularly Balkan country that opts to use has been allowed to use the euro and join the eurozone, you get no access to the single market.
You don't get access to the single market.
So Montenegro and Kosovo are both in the eurozone, but being accession candidates,
right?
Who use the euro, they at the moment, until they join the EU, are not allowed any access to the free market, because I take it's an issue of they would fluctuate values within the euro to, maybe just make it to, I suppose, unpredictable.
Yeah, I mean, there's the standards thing as well, which comes in on we're obviously very familiar with, given the Northern Ireland situation, where say what you like about the standards in a potential hard Brexit Britain, but they're definitely going to be higher than the standards in, as you say, exactly.
Of course, yeah.
So from an EU's point of view, they're consistent on that.
Well, because the reality is you can't join the European Union without being up to a certain standard in regards to food safety, in regards to manufacturing, workers' rights, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Rule of law is the big one, particularly the further they go into the Balkans, rule of law becomes a big stumbling block.
Yeah, because of all the corruption that goes on there.
That's the specific item is corruption. So, the more you go to the ex-Yugoslav states and Albania, and it's just a massive issue with, as we know, corruption. Going back on track to what you were saying, Farage and these AFTA deals, which he spoke up about a lot in about 2015 on the run to 2016 referendum. I think I've got my ideas why he backtracked on that and became the no-deal champion, and that's because if I'm like from 2016 onwards, when the no side won, Leave voters, importantly, I'm not saying Brexiteers, but Leave voters started screaming about there'll be no compromise with the EU. We want no compromise.
So you reckon he was he was adapting his policy to what he thought the audience wanted to hear, rather than thinking what would be better for the country?
See? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a Leave voter. I don't speak that.
I don't speak that Latin shit. But the reality is, where do we go now? Because we're now in a place where, with Farage particularly, where does Farage go?
Well, it's interesting this, and if you want to give Cummings his due, and I always try and say, but I think the fact that he's been boxed in as Mr. No Deal might have had something to do with the Tories' strategy, because everybody's been concentrating on the Tories' strategy when it comes to the election with
I know
Labour.
him and Cummings don't get on.
Yes. And I think if you remember back to when Boris was negotiating the deal, and a lot of people, including a lot of Leave voters, didn't think he was actually negotiating a deal.
Cummings, I don't know if you know this, what is Cummings' relationship with Aaron Banks? Has he got any kind of functioning relationship, or they just hate each other as well?
They would have worked together a bit on Leave campaigns, but I don't know what their relationship is. I know Banks and Farage are relatively close, so
of course.
So
wherever Farage go, Banks follows, or vice versa. I seem to imagine that Aaron kind of Banks kind of pulls the strings there.
But I think when it comes to Farage and Cummings, by making it look like Boris wasn't negotiating a deal at all, I think Farage thought he was being smart by saying, "Oh, he's going to go for no deal, so I'm going to get on that early," and he actually fell for it, because at one point they had reduced the amount of negotiators in their team to 4 people, and so Corbyn and the Lib Dems, not unjustifiably, stood up and said this is a sham negotiation. In reality, they had probably already negotiated the actual structure of the deal, and that was all politicking, and everybody fell for it.
You had a lot of Brexiteers, and by Brexiteers I mean Brexit politicians, who were saying, "Oh, we think this is," people from outside the inner circle in the cabinet of the Conservative Party saying, "Oh, we think this is a bluff on Farage's on Johnson's behalf. We do think he's negotiated a deal," and it turns out he did.
Yeah, that was it. And as I say, a lot of the Remain play people fell for that. But I also think, going back to the point of Farage, he fell for that as well, which is why Cummings boxed him into.
In all honesty, I think that narrative, and it still is playing on sort of ardent Remain side of the aisle, that narrative is still there that he's still trying to push through a no-deal Brexit. And to be honest, look, I don't trust Johnson in a lot of ways, but in all honesty, I don't think Johnson's pushing for a no-deal.
No, I don't think he is as well. I think he wants the deal. If he can come back and say, "Look, I negotiated this deal, which is 90% the same as what Theresa May is, apart from the thing that everybody, well, the Leave voters in particular, really didn't like," that he can say, "This is actually my deal, and it will be Boris's Brexit," which actually, I don't know why they don't use that. That's quite a good alliteration. That should be a fucking Tory party spat at this point.
They don't need any more fucking slogans. They can't seem to run in this decade, they have not seemed to be able to run or at least post-Brexit, run a general election without just being the party of slogans.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what? I will give it to Corbyn this week, and I never fucking back up Corbyn. And even McDonnell, and I'm terrified of John McDonnell. They have been giving, and look, to be fair, McDonnell and Corbyn are both lifelong activists.
Yeah.
What campaigning and the campaign trail is what they do well. they have been giving some great speeches this week in terms of just from a kind of observant political level.
Or an oratory level.
At oratory level and kind of a rabble-rousing level.
Right.
In terms of whoever they were trying to appeal to, I understand. I mean, you'd understand the appeal.
Well, they were very successful in 2017 when by using that strategy, and they had.
They did better than they were expected to.
Yeah, and they made the election, particularly in 2017, where people thought it was going to be a more Brexit-focused election than it ended up turning to be, and that narrative was controlled by the Labour Party. And you can see they're trying to do the same thing now, but with particularly, and this moves us on quite nicely to the Remain Alliance that was announced today, where you've got 60 seats where Clyde, the Liberal Democrats, and the Greens have all agreed that one of them will stand in both seats to give the Remain parties a better chance.
There's a really funny aspect to that. That grid, that they're really, really like. I mean, it's on a minuscule side of things, but so it means in Dominic Raab's seat, which I think is it's one of these fucking seats where the MP that holds it is either ardent Remainer or Leaver and is kind of known in the political circles for it. Yet their seat is totally in opposite.
Right.
Is posed in the opposite way to how they voted and how they campaigned. So Dominic Raab's seat, I think, is a Remain seat.
Okay.
And the Greens, so basically the Lib Dems have told the Greens they're standing down in Dominic Raab's seat. They're not going to run in Dominic Raab's seat because there's a great chance of the Greens taking it.
Right. Well, they've done that for quite a few seats that have been particularly...
Which is interesting because the only seats the Greens have ever taken is Brighton, isn't it? Or Brighton.
It
Brighton
is.
Pavilion.
Particularly a seat that voted Tory the last time. Can you imagine a seat that voted Tory in 2017 would vote Green?
I think it's going to have to be a phone checks time, but I think Rob stood in the London seat. So that might make a bit more sense.
It would, but as I say, from jumping effectively almost across the opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh, absolutely,
it would be a monumental achievement, and they'd have to have a very, very good ground game.
Let me I'm just finding out what seat he's the MP for. And
while you do that, there's another interesting point about I believe it was. There was a Tory party guy who got kicked out. Was it Greening? The former Attorney General who got kicked out recently.
Oh, fuck. The one who essentially gave Boris the bad advice.
No.
Pre him, yeah.
No, it was the one, the Remain more-minded one. I can't remember his name, but that doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But he, there's already this split with the sort of local Green Party because they really wanted to run against the Tory party candidate there because he has, from their opinion, a very bad environmental record. Yeah. They were told to stand down as part of this alliance, and they really don't want to. Yeah. So there's a risk of them basically splitting off and forming a miniature Green Party.
Just to go back to the Dominic Raab thing, so it's not quite what I thought. I mean, okay, it's on the border, but he's the MP for Esher and Waltham, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, the southeast of England. It's a constituency just on the wrong side of the London border. It's in Surrey. And it's a pretty fucking safe Conservative seat. I mean, as you can imagine. It's got a majority of 18,000. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm just going to click on the constituency and find out why the fuck they think the Greens have got a great chance of taking it this time. And I'm sure, if I know Surrey and that part of the world, it voted to Remain. I'm guessing Esher and Walton.
A lot of West London, which were Tory safe seats, did vote to Remain. They're pretty much the only Tory safe seats that consistently voted to Remain are the ones in West London.
We spoke about this last week. There's so if you split the home counties down the middle at London, essentially if you go east or southeast, you've got counties that voted hard Leave. Like Essex might be the most Leavey county of the UK.
Definitely of the south of England.
With the exception of maybe like Northumberland or something.
Yeah, definitely in the south of England, as I say.
And then if you go in the opposite direction, you go west. I mean, you've got somewhere like Surrey or Buckinghamshire or Hampshire. There's most definitely Remain.
Yeah, they're more One Nation Tories around now.
Yeah. Esher and Walton. I'm just going to look for the Leave vote. Hang on a sec. But we were talking about the electoral pact with the Greens.
Yeah. I mean, there's another interesting aspect of that, which is already, as I say, showing some cracks in it, although I think it will probably hold together until election day mainly, are the Liberal Democrat candidates in Wales who have been told to stand down for Clyde. And their objection is, and a couple of them have even said we're going to run as independents, is that, well, Clyde is a Welsh independence party and we're Liberal Democrats, we're a unionist party, so I don't want to even stand aside or give this independence people who want to take Wales out of a United Kingdom, any type of vote.
I mean, the reality of the situation is, if there's any of the constituent nations that are the furthest from independence, is Wales.
Oh, definitely. That is true, but from a point of view of somebody who was thinking that they were gonna stand. I mean, but those are the reasons that
Plaid Cymru taking most of the seats in Wales means fuck all.
No, of course it does. But as I say, from a stand of from a political principles stand, you wouldn't want to stand down to that a party that could want to actually
here's the result. I was looking for the Leave Remain result for Eastern Wharton. Just shy of 60% Remain. So Dominic Raab,
he was a very hard Leave guy,
is standing again. And I mean, there's a million examples of this. We said it last week. There's Vauxhall, where Kate Hoey is so hard Remain, is so hard Leave. You know, she puts Farage to shame. Yeah, she represents the second most Remain constituency in the country.
Yeah,
and she had the fucking audacity to have a go at Ken Clarke for, you know, being an MP in wherever is he in Derbyshire.
Yes, which voted a lot less proportion to leave than her constituency voted to Remain.
Yeah, I think his breakdown was about 52-48, just like the country.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
where Vauxhall is like, I think literally about 72% Remain.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy because the amount of MP, I think it really does expose something as well, is that the disconnect. And this is something that was an interesting sort of more underlying point of view, a philosophical point about. If you survey the country and the voters, they believe that MPs should represent the views of their constituents. Whereas if you do the same question to MPs, they will tell you, no, they vote for me, and then I am now my person in Parliament. I am my own man. I don't have to go to my constituents every single time and take a mini poll of them. And there's that disconnect between what we actually agree what MPs are.
Yes.
And it's a wider
whether they're
question.
delegates or whether they represent us.
Yes,
or,
exactly.
they represent us and are delegates or delegates, or that they are free-thinking politicians that we vote for, that we feel best represent us. Because I've said this before, I can't stand both Leave and Remain voters that scream about how their MP doesn't represent you. Well, dickhead, stop voting them in.
It's a good point.
Because really, is most people just vote for the party or the politician. They don't think about the party or the leader / prime minister. They don't think about who their MP is.
Yeah, which is it's a difficult one because particularly in a first past the post system, there are only so many people on the ballot.
Yeah,
and if you have 90% of the stuff that you agree with the party that you normally agree with, but there's your MP is a bit kooky and actually has opposite ends or fringe views within the party, you're in a bit of a bind there because I agree with you on most of the stuff, but there's a few things which I have fundamental differences of, but there's no one closer that I would actually vote for. Because,
I mean, if you look at, let's just take a local example. So we're seeing here in between South Woodford and Wanstead, just on the border of my constituency is Chingford and Woodford Green. IDS, Ian Duncan Smith's been the MP for as long as I've been alive, if not longer. I mean, in Chingford, IDS kind of makes sense because even though he's a real kind of posh toff, he's rabidly kind of anti-welfare state, anti-government, just anti-state or big state.
Well, he was the one who reformed and was the head of Universal Credit.
And Chingford, it kind of makes sense as to why Chingford would just keep voting in because Chingford's a very kind of working class area, but it's very, very stereotypical kind of like Essex, rabid populist. No to benefits, no to immigrants, no to where. What's weirder is Woodford, which makes up the other chunk of the constituency, which actually has a bigger vote share. Woodford's actually got a bigger population than Chingford.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
Woodford doesn't. I mean, Woodford's voting base is very different.
I'd imagine it would be quite split in Woodford between probably the Tories and the Lib Dems would be my bet.
Well, I actually feel the Lib Dems potentially have a chance to take Chingford and Woodford Green in the upcoming election just because IDS's majority has been essentially shattered. Not shattered, sorry, it's been reduced in the last election to about 3,000.
Okay, that makes him open, yeah. Particularly in and this, I wouldn't have the figures to hand, but I would have bet very good money that it was at least 60% Remain around here as well.
It was no, it was marginally Remain.
Really, okay.
It was like 51 or 2.
Okay.
It was 51, I think. So it's very marginally Remain. So Woodford's more the Remain area. If it was just Chingford as the constituency, it would be hard. I mean, you wouldn't see a much harder Leave result
in London. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, saying that, Havering, which is a county, is a borough of London. I looked up its Leave results yesterday. It actually has one of the highest Leave results in the country.
Really?
And just for context, Havering is the borough of London that contains Romford, Harold Hill, Gideon Park.
It's basically, effectively Essex, yeah.
Well, it's culturally Essex, yeah. It's a part of Essex, like a lot of areas of East London, that has been part of London for 55 years, but culturally hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
Apart from more council housing and, I suppose it has now a bigger immigrant population and the natives absolutely resent it.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, most people from Havering are cunts. I'm not going to hold that back. I've got a big dislike for Romford.
Well, yeah, you've been there, so.
Sorry, what the fuck were we talking about again? Leave Remain results. Okay.
Yeah. I think there was any more points on the alliances and resignations.
That was it. Yeah. Do I see any more? Do you see any more defections from any of the main two parties to Lib Dem from the moderates?
I don't know if I see any defections from the Lib Dems. I think a lot of them...
not from the Lib Dems.
Oh, no, sorry, to the Lib... I don't think I see any to the Lib Dems. I think most of the people that were going to do that would have done that during Parliament. Because they would have wanted it to be... They wouldn't have wanted it during the election, because that's just going to...
people now who are going to change... are just going to step down. They're not going to.
Yes.
They're not going to leave the party. They're just going to step down as MP.
And a person who I think we've talked about in the podcast before, who is everyone is looking at to see what she's going to do, is Jess Phillips, because she said earlier in the year.
Where the fuck does she stand though?
Well, she said earlier in the year that if Tom Watson resigned, then she would also resign. Yeah. But hey, she's a politician at the end of the day, and even though she's...
I mean, I like Jess Phillips. She's got balls, man. I mean, she's a great orator, and she's generally a great campaigner. She's not afraid to stand up for what's right, literally in the face of people and her own constituents. I think we've discussed it before. She was dealing with the issue, it was in her constituency, of the school in Birmingham, which is a state school, that basically refused to teach tolerance classes.
Yeah.
So tolerance of homosexuality and other religions, but I think the big one was homosexuality.
Yeah, that was the one that they got stickler over, because in their words, it was preaching the gay agenda or whatever crap they said, which could have come out of a fucking Bible Belt in America.
And look, here's the thing.
We're having these arguments? Really? Are we?
Here's the thing. It's a state school.
Yeah.
If you don't want your kid to teach, to be taught it, take them out. Jess Phillips went down there and actually, like, face to face with the protesters and said, "Look, like it, dislike it, it's staying."
Yeah, and I think she's got a little bit of leeway to do that, because it's quite a safe seat as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the constituency that I think holds areas like Spark Hill and all that kind of area of Birmingham.
Yeah.
So I mean Birmingham in general is very Labour, with the exception of the more kind of affluent Indian areas. And the real kind of outer areas as well, that border on like the Black Country and that. It's a safe seat. She can do what she wants.
Yeah, I think that's the point, which is going to be even more interesting to see if she does resign. Because from a moderate, because eventually a lot of the moderates in Labour are going to be thinking of the next step, because assuming that the Labour don't get into power, there will obviously be straight after this election a Labour leadership contest. Because Jeremy Corbyn effectively has to win to stay in charge now. And I think Jess Phillips is probably in a good position to be the moderate candidate, particularly if Tom Watson now is not in the party.
For deputy leader.
For deputy leader. Not deputy leader, for leader.
For leader.
Yeah.
That'd be good. I mean, that'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think
so. You're talking if Corbyn loses next election.
If Corbyn loses the next election, inevitably we will have a Labour leadership contest.
Do you know what? I wouldn't be too sure. Everything about the past tells us yes, because how the fuck can a leader of a party lose 2 elections and still stand?
Yeah.
Well, this is Momentum and Corbyn.
Corbyn's
an authoritarian and won't step down. Momentum don't have anyone else to put in.
You don't. Well, you wouldn't think McDonald would. Give a shot.
I did try to convince someone of this today. I could see McDonald just because he's everything that Corbyn is, with the important exception that he's a bit more pro EU.
Yes, and I would say that he's a bit more of a formidable character than Corbyn as well.
Because when Momentum surged forward with Corbyn in 2015 in the Labour leadership elections, they didn't know a year ahead how important Brexit was going to be, because we knew the referendum was coming. We didn't know that they didn't see, because they're such ideologues. They didn't think that people would vote leave.
It's very true, and here's an interesting hypothetical alternative history question. If they had realised that, would that wing of the party have put forward Corbyn, who is I don't think so.
No, absolutely not. No, of course they wouldn't have. They would not. If they had known Corbyn would have been such a problem for them post a Brexit referendum, particularly post a Leave win, they in no way would have. I mean, I don't know if they would have gone for someone as hard as McDonnell, because to be fair to Corbyn, he comes across as cuddly granddad. Corbyn, I mean, McDonnell, despite the fact he's a communist that is friends with terrorist groups. McDonnell does actually come across, even in his own, when he speaks of his own mantra, he does come across as kind of a scary Marxist.
Yeah, as I say, he's a more formidable character than Corbyn ever would be. And I think another thing that McDonnell would have going for him is the fact that he is a Liverpool native and a man of the North, which I think that...
Is he?
Yeah, he's from Liverpool.
No shit.
Yeah. I just read that today.
I would not tell.
No.
I would not be able to tell by his accent.
No. But posh Liverpool. Champagne.
Yeah, but I mean, posh Liverpool's like Paul McCartney. I mean, I could not fucking tell that he's from outside the M25.
No, that's what I didn't realise it until today when I read it, because they were on the BBC. They were talking about his speech, and it said he was from Liverpool and he wanted to move. He basically said he wanted the Northern Powerhouse, which was a Tory idea, but now Labour have decided that we want that as well.
Well, because they want industry back in the northwest and blah blah blah. But
yeah, have a word to China about that, because that ain't happening unless China are going to stop making everything. So I mean, everybody wants the North to be successful, but we want it to be a modern.
We can joining in the trade war, which we just can't compete in, because we can't compete with China.
I mean, we
can't contend with 1 billion slave labourers.
Well, exactly. Are you going to literally go back to the days when you were putting people down the mines and they were ordering fucking terrible wages? And it just won't happen. But it's weird.
I mean, under McDonnell, we wouldn't go back to. We wouldn't become China, but we'd become communist Poland. We'd become to everyone just going back down, as you said, down the mines.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Because that's the idea of a job: is the government pays you, go down the mines and be unproductive.
Yeah, which is it's just labour for the sake of labour.
Yeah,
as in,
literally. Yeah,
it's so regressive. There's no other word for it, I'd say. It's going back to a policy that has been shown to fail, that no other real developing up and moving country is trying to build their model on, just because there's this over-romanticised views of miners in the North.
And by the way, guess who in the EU would absolutely take us to task on that for doing that?
Oh, because of state aid rules. Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, in general, Germany would essentially block any coal we would try to send to the EU, because Poland is the biggest provider and burner of coal in the EU.
I have no doubt that would happen, but it's interesting to say that, because it's not very much in the spirit of free trade.
Look, I suppose we can disagree here, but I mean, the reality is, yes, it's a capitalist free trade bloc, but of course there's a protection element to it.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be outside the bloc, I mean, they're not going to stand for their biggest coal producer.
No.
And also not just biggest coal producer, but big coal producer that is cheap
Yeah.
to buy from, and next door to Germany.
Yeah.
They have a bigger capacity than we're ever going to have because, I mean, they're a bigger country, and two, the coal deposits of the Sudet Mountains in Silesia are fucking vast.
Well, it's interesting with that because if they were to go into that, I doubt even that they would try and open up coal mines per se, just because the Labour are now also the climate change party.
What industry would you see?
That's the thing. I can't see any industry that would actually work in the north like they. Well, renewables are a 21st century futuristic thing. They're not exactly the thing that working class people go into.
No.
Which is what Labour wants to have.
It's engineering students.
Yeah, exactly. Which might be more of Labour's base in the modern party, but they can't exactly come out and say that in an election.
That's the thing. What do you do with the generations now of mass unemployed in the northeast?
Yeah, it's...
Where do you send them? Away from, why don't you... Oh, God, I'm going to sound like a Tory saying this. Why don't you fucking educate your kids and allow for social mobility? I get you're old enough now that it's too far gone. Why don't you encourage your kids to take part in social mobility and go and get, become educated and go and get a job elsewhere? There's no chance. Fuck off.
I would say that's the only way that can be moved forward, particularly in this day and age of technology.
Yeah.
Is the only way that you're going to do it, and most schools recognise this. This is why they integrate coding so heavily, is that they they realise that it's all going to be technology, and you can actually do that from anywhere. You can be in a town in the north, but if you've got an iPad that you can program stuff through, you can work from anywhere.
There's no reason as to why the service sector cannot come to the northeast.
No,
and to be fair, Hull has kind of shown that.
Yeah.
Specifically, Hull has kind of shown it can attract the service industry. Yes, because it's cheaper pay, but they're jobs.
Yeah. And the North should really utilise that, because that gap in the near future is only going to get more. Yeah. The fact that it's so much cheaper to run a firm
there you go,
north.
Kids. Move to fucking Hull. You don't have to move to London. Move from Sunderland to Hull.
It would probably be a better bet, because God, the gap between moving from Sunderland to Hull, to London on a financial level must be such a bloody shock.
Oh yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, no one likes the idea of moving to Hull, but it's got to be better than Sunderland.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look, point being, Labour's policy towards industrialisation of the North, they've actually got to come out with some policies.
Yeah, as opposed to just general, we want people to get back to where it was.
Because
that world is gone.
As much as bigger bullshit as HS2 is, and a waste of money it is, at least the Conservatives in some way can see the bigger picture, which is they can bring the service industries to the northwest.
Yeah.
But fucking concentrate on the northeast, because that's the more desperately poorer part of the country.
Yeah, it's not got Manchester and Liverpool.
No.
Which is,
it's got Hull.
Yeah, exactly. It's I never understood why, especially with HS2, because whilst, as you say, at least they're doing something, if you talk to people in the north, a poll after poll, a study after study comes out, and what people in the north want is better transport links within other northern cities, not better transport links to London.
Because look, I agree with McDonnell on the idea of reinvigorating the north with industry, but I don't think the Tories are helping with HS2, because it just means that more people are going to, more businesses are going to be able to move personnel back and forward from London easier.
Yeah,
that's all it means. It doesn't mean we're going to start shifting people up north. It means that more personnel are going to move back and forward from London from the north. I mean, yes, to McDonnell in terms of trying to reinvigorate industry in the north and northeast, but think about what the fuck you're doing. You can't go back to manufacturing. I suppose you can go back to manufacturing, but it has to be a modern sector that makes money.
Yeah, precisely, and not. But even a modern sector that makes money, it's so difficult to compete on a global market these days.
And also, I suppose the problem with McDonnell government is that they would be government sectors.
Yeah, which are not exactly known for their efficiency and works, and particularly when they get completely unionised, which McDonnell will not only want but actively encourage, then that will just seep through and just it will just be.
I mean,
it worries me.
The problem was with the mines and the plants of the northeast before Thatcher closed them down. And look, I don't agree with how Thatcher closed down those plants in the way she did. It was just, goodbye, they're gone. You're now part of the, you're now part of the free market and the free market will take its course. That was bullshit. She did not think about the towns and the people of the north. She absolutely fucked them over. She should have thought about maybe selling it off to the private sector. So at least towns could still stay reliant on those plants and on those mines.
Or kept them open a few years longer and offered tax incentives to bigger companies to move out there to create extra jobs.
But they had, in one way or another, they had to sell off those plants and those mines.
They had to. They were
hemorrhaging money. They were black holes.
Yeah.
I mean, they were potentially bigger black holes than certain sectors of the NHS. I mean,
definitely.
The whole of the north was employed in these services, which I mean, they made no money. They had no use, and they were just ways of keeping people employed.
Yeah, pretty much. And
while losing billions of pounds.
Yeah, and the fact that successive governments, both Tory and Labour, had effectively kicked the can down the road for years because they didn't want to deal with the fact that they were going to make a shit ton of people unemployed unless they had a plan, made Thatcher the villain that she became.
Yeah, you now have whole towns and communities in the north that are for a few generations have been reliant on benefits.
Yeah.
Which, okay, you kind of have to a certain degree, after a couple of generations, blame the individuals there.
There does become an element of self-responsibility.
But nonetheless, there really has to be not just a forward-thinking strategy on Labour's behalf, but a modern and realistic strategy.
Yes.
You can't go back to the idea of heavy industry and manufacturing and
it's just not going to work. But I mean, saying that, it's not like the Tories have come out with any golden policies so far. They've just basically been saying the same things that they were saying.
Fucking slogans.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, I was saying this earlier on, and I don't think I got to it, but properly, which is every election, at least since with Brexit, which is now the Brexit referendum, this is now the second referendum, the second election since. The Tories can't come out with. They don't seem to be able to give speeches, and they can't seem to, rabble rouse anyone. All they can do is shout out slogans. Get Brexit done.
Yeah, they haven't got any solid. I mean, this happens to a lot of governments when they've been in power for so long. Is they just run out of ideas and run out of policies, and what annoys me, particularly as a more conservative-minded person, is there's lots of stuff I would like to get done, which is just they're not even fucking talking about.
They're not talking about, one, because of Brexit, and two, because they don't have the kind of firebrand politician thing about them. None of the cabinet, including Johnson, as much as people say, oh, he's a great orator. No, he's fucking not.
He can be when he's got the right thing. There's a good video online about him and Mary Beard having a debate about Boris Johnson was arguing that
historian Mary Beard.
Yeah, historian. Particularly, she's a Roman historian, and she was arguing that Rome was a better civilization than Greece, and Boris Johnson was arguing the vice versa.
Yeah.
And if you listen to his opening speech, which is about 20 minutes long, you can see that when he has something that he's genuinely passionate about, he is a fucking good orator. Mary Beard is also a very intelligent person.
I'll correct myself. There is a difference between an orator and, I suppose, a Obama-esque kind of
speech giver. Yeah.
Who, I mean, there's never been anyone in modern politics as good as Obama in terms of speech giving.
No, definitely not.
And winning people on side and making people excited.
Well, this is the thing why people sometimes compare Boris to Trump in regards, and sometimes it's a weird comparison, but other times it's good because they're both quite good at off the cuff, hitting the nail on the head sort of thing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Which is what Trump. If you watch Trump in his rallies, that's where he absolutely loves it. He's basically a stand-up comedian.
Yes, yeah.
And he is just in his element. He would just do that all bloody day.
He's a typical populist leader.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, there's still a difference between being a populist politician and a populist speaker as opposed to someone who can really campaign.
Yes.
A campaign even on moderate, from a moderate standpoint.
Yeah.
Because fucking campaigning from a moderate standpoint is hard.
Yeah, because you can't go. It's easy to shout, we need to go all the way this way or all the way that way.
Yeah.
But
it's
actually saying, let's calm it down a little bit, little by little. It doesn't
let's
invigorate
think of this
people.
head first.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why Clinton was so fucking bad at it among many other reasons because she was not really offering anything different.
In terms of Hillary, I was going to say Bill was
Bill was brilliant. Yeah.
Can we get fucking Bill back?
I know he can't have Bill back anymore.
I mean, post Epstein, I don't think you. Actually, that's taking us into something. But anyway, post Epstein, I don't think you can go Clinton again.
No.
Right.
No. I mean, even without the Epstein thing, I think his people are rethinking the whole Monica Lewinsky thing as a sort of thing where even a lot of Democrats, particularly Democrats. I was watching a Dave Chappelle special from 2000 the other day, and it was in I can't remember what city, but it was a blue city.
So we're talking in the run up to the election.
It was in
the Gore Bush election.
Yes, the Gore Bush election, and he and Dave Chappelle asked the audience, "So, what do we think about Monica Lewinsky?" Yeah. And I say it's a blue city, and loads of people, mainly women, were screaming out, "No, bitch." Like that, and that you just think, what?
Have you seen Lewinsky?
That's completely opposite of what would happen.
Have you seen Lewinsky recently?
Lewinsky?
Yeah.
No.
I fucking would. She's got a nice hip-tit ratio about her now.
Well, it's one of those ones you would just say you would as well, wouldn't it? Because you want to be in the same place that Clinton was. So you're just presidential mouth right there.
It's not quite in the Oval Office, but you know. But yeah, point being. So let's just fucking diverge from Brexit for a moment because we're going to spend the next few weeks. Do you know what? Let's just put it out now. Can we fucking, unless something really important break, can we do another special next week?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm really getting bored of laying out these agendas along election and Brexit.
I think now that the election campaign is in its swing, it's just going to be a lot of repetitive. We're all used to this now. It just feels like we're back in the same place.
Because I do feel like this episode we have been kind of going through the motions of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
So next week we'll between now and next week we'll come up with a topic and we'll go back to doing a special because I'm just fucking bored of this at the moment.
Yeah.
So diverge from Brexit, Epstein, the Epstein autopsy come back. The what's the word I'm looking for? The
coroner.
The coroner has come back and said that there is no way this was a suicide. This is a murder.
I think it wasn't an official coroner, but it was a sort of an external guy who came because the official coroner came back within like a day and said it was probably a suicide, which everyone called bullshit on.
Yeah.
But I think as the more revelations which are interesting this week have been about the ABC leak, which we were talking a little bit before the mics went on, about how an ABC reporter, one of their main anchors, was effectively ranting on a hot mic that she had this story, the Epstein story, including pictures of Prince Andrew and an interview with the woman who has allegedly, in air quotes, slept with Prince Andrew when she was 17. How she had that story and she was pissed off because she would have been one of the most famous reporters in the world if she had broke that story effectively, and they buried it because they wanted to have interviews of Will and Kate because it was during the time when Will and Kate were the big thing.
So again, breaking the fourth wall, just before, as Tom was just saying, before the mics came on, me, Tom, producer Harris and executive producer Chloe were talking about, again, the Epstein case and how essentially Andrew, I mean, we're now months down the line with this, but how Prince Andrew has essentially been the sacrificial lamb of powerful players who are on the rap list. He has been he's been the main media focus because, yes, he is a figure of power, but he's not going to receive any consequence just because he's a member of the royal family.
No, whereas someone like Bill Clinton you could easily see him having. There's definitely more political ramifications for Bill Clinton being looked at more closely than there is Prince Andrew.
I mean, the things with Clinton, he's now so far from office that, I mean, you could see if there was real evidence. I mean, there is real evidence, apparently. I don't know. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on the Epstein situation, but we do know he's been logged on the plane back and forward from at least 26 times he's been logged on the plane, and quite a few of those times includes going to Epstein's private island where a lot of these girls were held.
Yes, and he actually had basically got rid of the Secret Service, which as an ex-president you're really not supposed to do when he was on this plane.
Well, one, that's dangerous, and two, I mean, that's just absolutely...
It's a massive red flag.
Yeah.
It's just like, what you effectively have this free security for life, which you need as an ex-president.
And they still use.
Yeah. I mean, the family
still use.
Yeah, the family still use as they are entitled, and he's I mean, going away from that, I mean, anything could have happened. Particularly when you consider the character of Epstein, he could have just fucking kept him there, or actually probably what he probably ended up doing, which is actually probably blackmailing him.
I mean, Epstein. What we now know is he's a major figure. I mean, he's not an intimidating gangster, but he's obviously a man with a lot of connections and a lot of, I suppose, by nature of what he was doing, he was involved in an organised crime syndicate. He was trafficking young women.
Yeah, effectively, it was one could argue, especially when you put all the pieces down, that it was the biggest people trafficking, one of the biggest people trafficking ring in American history.
Do you know roughly how many sort of women we're talking about?
But it's so like shrouded.
Because I didn't know he was potentially that big.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely, because he was
getting
new ones all the time.
Story because the implications of it.
Yeah.
But I had no idea that it was that big a ring.
People have, I think, I can't remember who it was, but somebody had labelled him the most prolific paedophile in American history.
Wow.
Which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. But also it's one of those things where one of the biggest mysteries about Epstein is how did he get his money? Because he wasn't from wealth. He didn't have a rich daddy.
Well,
he had.
He was a. Was he a hedge fund manager or something like that in the city?
He was a financial wizard who effectively a hedge fund manager or someone on Wall Street saw had a lot of talent, took him under his wing, and then he sort of went away for a little bit, and then came back with billions and billions of dollars. He managed to convince someone to give him a multi-million-dollar mansion for free.
The fuck?
Yeah. That doesn't happen.
Again,
millionaires don't give away big houses like that for free.
Away from the crime stories, I don't know much about Epstein in terms of what his actual business. I know he's some kind of connection to the finance world.
But this is the thing. That's pretty much all anyone knows about him, because he doesn't really have.
So he's a real shadowy figure.
He had this business where he would basically be a personal wealth manager for billionaires.
And for anyone jokes down my front about this, I'm absolutely pro-Israel. I'm, a defender of the Jewish cause and all that. But doesn't he have some kind of connection to the Israeli state via his wife?
I don't know about that, but
his wife is an Israeli citizen whose dad is some kind of important player in Israel.
It wouldn't surprise me, because he's got so many fingers in so many pies.
Just coming out my mouth saying that, I hate saying that, because you sound like a conspiracy theorist. And because whenever you hear some crackpot conspiracy theorists who has some kind of chip on their shoulder, they start going on about Mossad.
Well, particularly as you can pretty much trace the epidemiology of most conspiracy theorists to the biggest, most powerful conspiracy theorists of all time, which is the Jews control the world.
Yeah,
bullshit.
which is obviously just bullshit. But
I mean, you can even trace the sort of radical Islamist.
But let's not get into this sector, because I hate talking about. I feel slimy as soon as we start talking about this sector in regards to people's stupid conspiracy theories towards Israel and Jews. And don't get me wrong, I have issues with the Israeli state in terms of how they treat Palestinians. I believe in a two-state solution, but I hate slipping into these Israel conspiracy theory conversations, because it just feels slimy.
Yeah, fair enough.
Point being, back to Epstein.
He had his fingers in so many places. I mean, he had Tony Blair's number in his little black book. And there's no actual connection between him and Tony Blair apart from that number. But that just shows you how far this guy had reach.
Yeah.
Because that's why I said I'm not accusing him of having. He's not like involved like Clinton was involved. Blair. Yeah. But Blair's a pretty boring person. The personality.
I've just got that image in my head of Blair stepping off the plane at Little St James Island. Hello. Oh, fuck. Just with Brown bumbling along behind him.
Just hiding behind the stairs.
It's falling out.
No, but it's an interesting one because of how little the story's being covered, I would say.
Yeah.
And this is what always fascinated me about.
It's being covered, but it gets battered away.
Yeah. A good example of that is we were talking about the ABC tape, and most American news outlets had it on their front page about that. But the BBC had hidden it onto their really low down onto their US and Canada page, which nobody goes on.
Do keep in mind, in this country, we're in such, political turmoil every 2 days or every other day. I think a lot of the Epstein. It's just unfortunate the Epstein situation has been happening over the last few months because it's just been battered away by Brexit news.
I think there's an element of that, but when I was looking down the site, there were certainly some lesser, more human interest stories that probably could have been bumped to have the Epstein story about the latest developments about the ABC. But as I say, it's an interesting one because of just how it's developing. I would say is more of a thing. It's you don't want to get into accusing people of things that you don't have evidence for, but it's just so.
Well, the problem is you've got a load of conspiracy theorists, nut jobs out there that do just love pointing fingers at.
They think he's not dead. That's the funny thing about this whole thing is that this sells so fishy that conspiracy theorists have to go another layer and start claiming, no, it's not even that he killed. He's actually not dead. And you're like, right, okay.
What would be in any kind of political force in keeping him alive?
Yeah,
there'd be nothing in keeping him alive.
No, as I said, who would be motivated to do that? He was just about to effectively. The great one says that he was just about to testify against all these people. Why would you?
But then again, conspiracy theories believe everyone is still alive who dies. So
that's it. That's the main thing. It's I do find that whole world quite fascinating.
do you know what? I really would like to at some point. We can't do it today. We're about to run out of time, but. I really like to one day look into the world of political conspiracy theories. Not for long, because it'd make me want to throw up. But
you got a good primer book on that,
where we could look into the mindset of particular conspiracy theories, because every single world event that happens automatically is a conspiracy.
There's John Ronson's written a really good book on this. He wrote it years ago, where he and one of the bits in it, which is absolutely brilliant to read, and he's talked about this on Joe Rogan's podcast, where he and Alex Jones and one other guy broke into Bohemian Grove in California.
This is in the late 90s, right?
Yeah. And there's actually video of they've got this whole weird owl ceremony that they've got, and it's one of those sort of Bilderberg linked groups that everybody goes through. And according to John Ronson, who's not a conspiracy theorist, it just looked like a load of old rich blokes who wanted to get drunk. Which is like that's probably the thing to read.
Yeah, all that kind of Bilderberg, Davos type stuff.
Yeah.
It's just high corporate and political business meetings.
Yeah, exactly. It's similar to the Freemasons, effectively.
I wouldn't look too far into them.
No.
Is it powerful people talking about being powerful and how they would, do things, how they would essentially run their aspects of politics and trade and cross political business cooperation? Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
But to believe it's anything more, you're retarded.
Yeah, you're looking for the invisible hand to guide you, where there is no actual hand.
Is there going to be some sliminess? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there going to be this, Illuminati type mass murder, end cult type situation? No. Nah. You're a moron.
No, exactly.
And the problem is, you've got someone like Alex Jones, who is just a bigger conspiracy nut as any other big conspiracy nut, but he has such a big influence on conspiracy nuts and generally on the kind of real over-the-top right-wing conspiracy nut side of things, that you now have these big overarching conspiracy theories that are just accepted by a lot of people as being true.
Yeah, and it's just like, and if you don't believe the conspiracy theories, you poor naive son of a bitch.
I mean, think how fucking common it is. How many people in your life, if you start talking about 9/11, if you were to talk about 9/11, how many people in your life would say it's conspiracy theory? I'd say it might be in my life, maybe up to 60%.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, I know a lot of people who thought that, quite rightfully, that there was a big involvement of Saudi Arabia, and that way they first which was confirmed.
Saudi Arabia, but not in the way they want to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, I've definitely met people. The more scarier one for me is vaccines, because I've met a few people who are like anti-vaxxers. I've met some people who literally have.
That one's funny because over the last 20 years, that has crossed political boundaries.
Yeah,
it's gone from being a left wing to a right wing issue.
Yeah, where right-wing people now think of it, particularly in America, as a freedom of issue, particularly when school districts and governments say we want to do forced vaccinations. Because to an American, anything being forced by the government is just antithetical to it. And then you get people, even like big-name comedians like Bill Maher, who believe in the sciences of vaccines, but believe people should have the right not to have them.
It's a freedom issue.
Yeah, it's a freedom issue. But I'm like, what's more important, the right not to have them or the right of everybody else who could still get the disease even if they are vaccinated?
Your fucking stupid kid.
Exactly, just because you have this.
Vaccinate your fucking kid.
Yeah, it's possibly the worst thing that any medical professional.
The whole thing it was a load of kind of early mums netters that basically started saying to come on this conspiracy theory that by injecting your kid by vaccinating your kids, you could essentially give them autism.
Yeah, because it came from some guy in the 90s some British doctor in the 90s who was stripped of his doctorship because of this, who basically wanted to make a name for himself.
But then further on down the line, in a sort of intersectional way, where with the left, where it became a bit unfashionable to basically not want your kid to have autism, then the right took up that cause and said, oh no, obviously we don't want an autistic kid who can't succeed in life and blah, blah, blah. It crossed a political boundary.
Yeah.
Within the space of 20 years.
All based on this absolute lie, but there's actually a link between
vaccines and bollocks, autism. Of course. I mean, there's no... Right, so producer Harris is giving me the kite off motion. Yeah, we're going to go to... we don't know what the subject's going to be yet, but I suppose we're introducing next week. We are still, just to close this down, we're still rebuilding our kind of social media presence just because we've stopped SoundCloud. By the time you're hearing this, everything should be up and running, and we should have a social media site. We should be putting out more kind of information along with each episode. We should be just putting out little posts and stuff and keeping you more up to date. Tom, anything to say?
No, I think especially not in the election. We covered that pretty to death, I'd say.
Oh, it's boring me to death, that's for certain.
Yeah.
Right, we'll see you later then.
See ya.